Hello everybody. Happy Thursday, July the 5th. I'm in downtown San Antonio with the Alamo behind me. And it's getting a little humid. They've had some rain here, but the heat is not oppressive like it could be. So hold on for a second while I share some stuff on here. So welcome everybody. Welcome to the Alamo. If you remember the Alamo, I know that they probably don't teach much of that in history anymore, so we don't get that as much as we should. So I'm going to try and share this on my Facebook page here. My iPad's not bringing up the best connection here. And it's kind of hard to see who's on because I have to, there's a glare and stuff on here. So anyway, bear with me. So hopefully everybody had a good 4th of July. I enjoyed the town of Bernie's fireworks, which is just northwest of San Antonio. And trying to share this on my Facebook here. And I think it's giving me some challenges trying to connect. Not sure why, because it's got a great connection here. So anyway, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Alamo. It is, I don't know, temperature was in the mid-70s. Now it's feeling a little bit more humid right now. My iPad's not working. I can't share it. So anybody, if you can share it on my page, Restored to Freedom, and also the Jezebel Ahab Leviathan support group, that would be great. I'm going to have to go on without the sharing, so anyways. So I had a great 4th of July with, I always call them the greatest family in America, the Woodruff family. They had, the Littles were with us. The Biggies, as I call them, are out in Colorado on a church group, I don't know, camping trip or something like that. So they have not been with us, but I've been enjoying myself with Sid and Janelle and the gang. Had some fun eating some more frozen yogurt yesterday, my second go round in a couple of days. So so today I'm at the Alamo. I've always wanted to do a Facebook Live from the Alamo. I visited here on when I was here on business a long time ago. And I remember it's always shocking to me that the Alamo is like right in downtown San Antonio. I'll show you some of the other, over my shoulder here, where you have some of the other buildings that are here in downtown. Again, lots of people are here. It's, you know, a lot of people on vacation right now, so it's very, very busy with people. But I was always surprised that I always thought the Alamo was like out in the middle of nowhere. Because it was like a missions group. So I'm going to read a little bit about, if I can get it on here, yeah, the Alamo mission, a little bit of history, because I know that unfortunately we don't get a lot of this and our kids don't get the accurate history. It says the Alamo mission in San Antonio was commonly called the Alamo, was originally known as Mission San Antonio de Valero. It was founded in the 18th century as a Roman Catholic mission and fortress compound. And today it's part of the San Antonio Mission's World Heritage Site in San Antonio, Texas. It was the site of the famous Battle of the Alamo in 1836, and it's now a museum in the Alamo Plaza Historic District. The compound was one of the early Spanish missions in Texas, built for the education of area American Indians after their forced conversion to Christianity. The mission was secularized in 1793 and then abandoned. 10 years later, it became a fortress, housing the 2nd Flying Company of San Carlos de Paris military unit, who likely gave the mission the name Alamo. During the Texas Revolution, Mexican General Martin Perfecto de Cas surrendered the fort to the Texan Army in December 1835, following the siege of Bexar. A relatively small number of Texan soldiers then occupied the compound for several months. They were wiped out at the Battle of Alamo on March 6, 1836. When the Mexican army retreated from Texas several months later, They tore down many of the Alamo walls and burned some of the buildings. For the next 5 years, the Alamo was periodically used to garrison soldiers, both Texan and Mexican, but was ultimately abandoned. In 1849, several years after Texas was annexed to the United States, the U.S. Army began renting the facility for use as a quartermaster's depot. The U.S. Army abandoned the mission in 1876 after nearby Fort Sam Houston was established. The Alamo Chapel was sold to the state of Texas, which conducted occasional tours but made no effort to restore it. The remaining buildings were sold to a mercantile company which operated them as a wholesale grocery store. So essentially, it was a mission, a Roman Catholic mission, and it was established in 1716. The Spanish government established several Roman Catholic missions in East Texas. So this was one of them. So I always like to know about little history of the places that I'm at, because I'm like that. It makes things more interesting to know, assuming what we're reading is accurate, because I don't know, they could rewrite things anytime they want. So anyway, so today the Lord wants me to talk about how to handle disagreements. And the short of it is we need to have discernment as to how to handle disagreements, because every situation is going to be a little unique, whether it's with your child, with your spouse, with your church pastor, with your people at work. You know, you have to use discernment of what they can handle, what they can't, where they're at in their Christian walk. You know, you can't go up to a person that's not saved and start berating them for cussing, because they don't know any better. You know, you at the same time should say something to someone if they're in the church and they're cussing or posting things on Facebook with curse words, saying, really? You know, what are you doing? That's not very Christ-like. So that's why you have to have discernment and wisdom. So I'm going to read 2 Timothy 2:23 through 26. The guy that mentored me drilled this into my brain. It says, "But avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. And a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient, in humility, correcting those who are in opposition, if God perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, and that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do his will." So I remember reading that and thinking, okay, what that means to me is if I'm speaking to someone who may think that they're a Christian, but they have the spirit of Jezebel on them, they're not going to be able to handle a lot of the stuff I'm going to be saying, because it will cause them to feel convicted, and the spirit in them will not be happy. That's why you see a lot of people with the spirits of Jezebel and Leviathan that will get very angry, because they know they're able to get their way that way. The same thing goes for if I have a child, or you know, people that are friends of mine that are not close to the Lord. I cannot be trying to speak words into their life that would cause them to feel condemned by the enemy for what they're doing. So for instance, if you have a child that's living with a person and not married to them, and they're having, you know, sex and fornication, well, if they were hurt by the enemy, that's normally why they're doing that. If they had a father and mother that got divorced, and now they're doing things that the church would consider a sin, well, if we go up to them, we can say something loving to them, saying, you know what, I don't approve of this. I don't approve of this, but I will always love you. And I've had to say that with my own children. And so when they can receive love that way, and you say it in a loving tone, and you can tell them, you know, there'll be nothing that you can do that will ever cause me not to love you. Just like Jesus and the Lord. There's nothing that we can do that will cause him not to love us. Now, we can not be in his will, and then he can't protect us as the enemy does things to hurt us. So that is part of the deal. But it's very important for us to discern and know. You know, how did Jesus handle this? You know, the woman at the well was in sin, was doing things she shouldn't be doing. She was, had 5 husbands, I think, and Jesus knew it. So he spoke the truth to her. Alright guys, sorry about that. Unfortunately the phone overheated and now I'm doing part 2. So I just want to let everybody know that are watching this again is I was into my teaching and then the sun came out and it got really hot. So again, this is going to be part 2. My phone overheated as the sun came out and it started heating it up, and again I don't know when it's going to overheat, when it's not, but it is what it is. So here we are. I'll wait for some people to pop back on again. I'm outside the Alamo, and we are in San Antonio talking about how to handle disagreements. So I'm back in the shade now because my phone just overheated and now it's cooled down again so I can speak again. Alright, so again we talked about 2 Timothy 2:23 through 26. It says, but avoid foolish and ignorant disputes, knowing that they generate strife. And a servant of the Lord must not quarrel, but be gentle to all, able to teach, patient in humility, correcting those who are in opposition, if God perhaps will grant them repentance, so that they may know the truth, and that they may come to their senses and escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive. You can walk through here, guys. It's facing me. So it requires discernment of when to bring up a situation to address it more firmly than others. You have to know the person, where they're at with the Lord. You know, there's those that are having the spirit of Jezebel that are in the church that need to be addressed more firmly, because if they're operating in those spirits and they're controlling and manipulating and hurting people, we cannot tolerate that. So discernment will tell you where they're at with their walk. Same thing goes if they're living in sin with someone, they're not married to them, but they're not even going to church and they were hurt deeply by father wounds, mother wounds, whatever. We cannot get in their face and start condemning them like the enemy would want us to do. Then they would really hate those that are Christians. You know, a lot of people do that. So you have to have a lot of discernment and wisdom as to what a person can take, what they cannot take. So how did Jesus handle it? We're talking about the woman at the well. You know, she was living in sin. She had 5 husbands, I believe, and so he addressed it with her, you know, and she received it. He knew that she could receive it, so that was good. You know, think about Peter. He addressed with Peter, and he kept putting his foot in the mouth all the time, and he told him, hey, you're gonna deny me 3 times, and Peter's like, there's no way I'll do that, and then he ended up doing it. So one of the first ones that, of course, Jesus wanted to seek out was Peter, to restore him, because he felt a lot of guilt for what he had done by saying he was not associated with Jesus. Think about the Pharisees. Pharisees were like today's modern day people in the church that are very prideful and arrogant, and they hurt God's people. Jesus was not happy with the Pharisees, so he basically called them out, and they did not like him. He was speaking the truth to them. So debating and confusion, I see a lot of that on Facebook, where you'll have someone that say is operating in the spirit of Jezebel or Leviathan, and they are purposely trying to come in to cause dissension, confusion, anger, and trying to get a person not to listen. You think about Paul. Paul wanted the thorn in the flesh taken away from him, which it says is a messenger sent to buffet him by Satan, which is essentially I believe it was a woman that was trying to come against what he was teaching, and he wanted God to take that person out, and God said, no, my grace is sufficient for you, you can do it. You know, I've had that oftentimes too, with people trying to come against the teachings that the Lord has given me, and I'm trying to help people get delivered, and they're trying to hurt that, trying to stop them. So it takes a lot of discernment, you know. But you'll see it on Facebook. That's why oftentimes I won't tolerate it. If a person's trying to come in and come against blatantly, then we may need to remove that comment. We may need to remove that person and stop it. You know, because again, most of my people that follow me are those that are supposed to be Christians, so they should know better. They should to know that. You know, obviously, if my audience were those that were not Christians, then they would know better, and I would know that, and I'd be able to speak more in a different message to them of love. You know, my message is always covered in love, but again, we have to use discernment as to what we can share what we can. Again, if you can share this too on my Restored to Freedom page, those that are watching, that'd be great. I know I've asked you the first go around that I had before my phone overheated, but that would be great if you can. And the Jezebel Ahab Leviathan support group. So again, you have to use discernment whenever you're having disagreements with someone. If they're your spouse, it could be that they're dealing with that spirit of Jezebel and Leviathan. Leviathan twists things. So you may see two different realities between you and your spouse. And it is a challenge, obviously, when you're married to someone 24 hours a day and they're in your bedroom and they're in your space, that spirit in them can try to come against you and to hurt you and to do things that are not cool. Whereas if they are a person that's, say, in ministry or a church person, you know, they're trying to cause disagreements. You know, I always, every situation is always different. Always. I handle it as much as I can in love, but if I know a person's trying to cause division and confusion and they're part of the church, I know right away that's the spirit of Jezebel. I'm not going to tolerate it. I will not get into an argument with anyone. You know, Jesus was very wise at how he handled the Pharisees. You know, he could confound them because they tried to get him into a place where he couldn't get his way out of it. You know, I've had to do that myself a couple of times, and it's not fun dealing with those spirits because they're very cunning. They're very smart at trying to twist the truth and blame and stuff. You know, if the person's walking here on the streets, you know I can discern fairly quickly where they're at with the Lord. You know, and if they have a strong heart for the Lord, and if they're, you know, charismatic, if they pray in tongues, all that stuff, they're spirit-led, you can discern that pretty easily. Whereas if they're just, you know, going to church, going through the motions, in a different religion that wouldn't get it, and then I know where I can't start having discussions with. I remember I had a stepson that thought he knew a lot about the Bible, and he read the Bible a lot, but he didn't quite understand and discern things. And so there was occasions when I first started having my own wisdom of learning from this guy that was mentoring me, some things I didn't know about walking in authority and so forth. Well, I was excited and I wanted to share that with him. Well, all it did is cause strife between he and I, and or he would take an offense, or he would get angry. So the Lord said, you need to knock it off, Nelson. You know, yeah, maybe you're trying to get through to him truth, but if he can't receive it, then you are the one that is sinning. You are the one that are causing strife. And a servant of the Lord must not strive, but be gentle with all. You know, hoping that they may come to their senses and realize. But again, I had to back off and only talk about things like sports and other things that we could agree upon. So that shows wisdom and discernment. And that's what the Lord expects in a mature Christian and a mature believer. You see a lot of this on Facebook where people are getting into striving, and it's ridiculous for a Christian to do that. And I won't participate in that. You know, I won't go back and forth all day long with a person trying to wear me out that has the spirit of Jezebel. I know better, and I'll shut it down if I have to. And I'll block the person if I need to, if I know that that's where they're at. You know, I do it in love, but we should not be striving. You know, if a person's your child, and if they're your child and you know like they're a young child versus an older child, then you also have to use the Lord's wisdom and discernment as to what you can talk to them about, because otherwise you can hurt their hearts to where they hate you, and then before you know it, you both hate each other, and you never talk to each other. You blame the kid, and the kid blames you, and the enemy wins. You know, if your child's not ready to receive the truth, then don't go there with them. But oftentimes we hurt our children as we're growing up. I know that I did that when I was, you know, when my kids were younger. My son had what happened to him that caused these spirits to come on him, and it was really painful to have to endure trying to manage a kid that's unmanageable. And so I would say some things to him out of frustration. You know, so I had to look at myself in the mirror after all this. When he got delivered, he was a different boy, and I could talk to him. But I could see how a lot of parents get really harsh and angry with their kids, and then they hate their kids because the kids don't want nothing to do with them. And then as they grow older, they have such a wedge between them, they want nothing to do with them, and they blame the child for everything when they need to look in the mirror at themselves and say, I need to take responsibility for what I did, my part, to hurt them, to push them away from me. And ultimately the enemy is behind all striving, so you have to say, okay, yeah, I did what I did, I have to take responsibility for that, but ultimately the enemy hurt me somehow, and that's why I did what I did, and that's why I did the striving and fighting and arguing. So again, it comes down to hearing the Lord and walking in what the discernment of the Lord's telling you to do. But I will never strive with anybody. I will be doing what God tells me to do, and they may not like it. I will not bend what the Lord's telling me to do, and I will not ever be controlled by a person that has the spirit of Jezebel anymore. Just like Jesus didn't get controlled by that with the Pharisees. He spoke the truth. So that's what I'm going to do as well. So it may make them angry, but I will do it in love, you know, and hoping that they can escape the snare of the devil, having been taken captive by him to do as well. So, but I'm not going to get into an argument, you know, over the phone or in person with the person. That's ridiculous. I know my convictions, I know what the Lord wants me to do, and I know that I'll do it in love. So anyways, that's what the Lord wanted me to talk about today, because there's a lot of disagreements that go on between believers and between non-believers. And this is funny. People are walking by and they think that I have the camera filming across the street at the Guinness World Records Museum, which I'm not. I also have a Ripley's Haunted Adventure over there, and anyways, Ripley's Believe It or Not. So guys, I'm filming behind me where you can see the Alamo. So anyway, it is a challenge. You know, there's a lot of times people are flat out liars, and they try to portray themselves as all sweet and innocent when they've got those spirits in them. And that's why you have to be a little more careful as to who comes alongside and tries to buddy up with you and tries to kiss up to you. You have to discern that, and you have to maybe sometimes play the playa, because they'll try to act all sweet and nice when they're the ones that have that spirit, that are hurting their spouses and causing sickness and disease in their bodies, whatever. You have to be on to that. So anyway, again, sorry that I had to start over again the second time, but hopefully you got the gist of this. I'm in downtown San Antonio, right outside the Alamo. I did talk about the Alamo in my first part, so hopefully you guys can listen to both if you're listening to this part 2, that I call it. But again, there's people all around me. My phone overheated the first time around. Maybe I'll take you on a quick tour here so you can see. Let me flip this around. So lots of people here looking up the Alamo. I walked in there, I don't know, 15 years ago when I was here on business. It's in the heart of downtown. Got to be careful because my phone could overheat again. So that is the Alamo. And I remembered it. It didn't move. They didn't change locations. It's kind of a short tour, as I remember. Lots of visitors, vacationers. It's definitely something you'd want to come to if you've never been here. If you've never been to San Antonio, you definitely want to come visit the Alamo, as well as the Riverwalk. Maybe I can cross the street here and show you a little bit of the waterfalls that they have. It's real pretty. Let me flip this back around. Okay. So we'll go on vacation together. We're like a tourist today. I'm near the Hyatt Regency. Pretty water. Okay guys, I'm going to let you go. See you later. Have a great July the 5th. See ya.